It's prediction time for the upcoming week. Okay, so the Blazers play 4 games between now and the next time we meet. They have 2 home games, 2 on the road. Friday against the Atlanta Hawks, who are the worst team, at least by record, in the NBA. Then on Sunday against the San Antonio Spurs. Then they leave on a 4-game road trip. They start with back-to-back games against the Oklahoma City Thunder, 21-17 on the year. And then on Wednesday with the Houston Rockets, who are 27-9. Which games do the Blazers win, and which games do they lose? Any of these games stand out to you?
Not really. I think in terms of predicting who we think is going to win and lose, I'm sure we all predicted the same, unless someone surprised. I'm sure we all picked them to go 1-3 with this group of 4 teams.
I did.
I did too. And so I will say this about the Hawks game, because last week we all said the Blazers would beat the Hawks. Didn't even talk about it. So this week we all think they're going to win again, but I at least want to give them a little bit of talking about.
Sure.
The Blazers have had Friday nights this year, and I don't know if this means anything or not, but 3 of their worst losses and worst performances this year have come on Friday nights.
Wow.
The loss against Brooklyn early in the season here at home was a Friday night. The loss at Sacramento on the road early in the season was on a Friday night. And the most recent loss to the Denver Nuggets, which is arguably the worst performance we've seen out of them this year, was on a Friday night. I have no idea if that means anything. It probably doesn't.
But it's interesting.
It is interesting.
Oh, totally.
Nevertheless, and it also, while we all pick them to win, I don't think any of us will be surprised if they lose that one on Friday. Right?
No, I think at this point it just becomes the way in which they lose a game.
If they lose it.
If they were to lose said game where they are favored at home against the worst team in the league.
Yeah, I'm picking them to beat the Hawks, and we all are, just because they're the Hawks. I mean, the Blazers should be able to beat the worst team in the NBA.
They shouldn't lose them twice in a week, that's for sure.
Definitely not.
And they have Damian Lillard back.
They do have Damian Lillard back, and they've been beating bad teams.
Yeah.
Outside of losing to the Hawks, which is unfortunate, they have been beating teams that are worse than them. Yeah. And then the 3 games that they're playing against the Spurs, the Thunder, and the Rockets.
This is brutal.
The Blazers haven't been playing well against good teams.
No.
I looked it up. They've played 17 games against teams with records of 500 or better this season, and they're 6-11 in those games. But if you go back to November 30th, they're 1-9 in those games. And so how can you pick them to beat a good team right now? It just
1-9 against good teams.
I thought about the Rockets because James Harden isn't playing, but you look at that lineup, they're still going to put out Chris Paul, Eric Gordon, Trevor Ariza, Ryan Anderson, Clint Capella. I mean, that's still a really good roster. It's on the road. How can you pick the Blazers to beat a good team right now?
Is there one game in there that you think could be close out of those 3?
I think they could all be close. I think they could all be close. I mean, you texted me during the Cleveland game saying, in the second quarter or third quarter, you're like, this feels like a close loss.
Yeah.
I think all 3 of those games could feel that way because the Blazers have been competitive. Jared said they're 1-9, but for the most part, they've been competitive in those games. They just aren't finishing them and winning them because, frankly, they're less talented than most of these teams that they're playing that are playoff teams. The game I think they could win is the Spurs. That's the one I would give them the next best shot to win.
Now, why?
It's at home. Rudy Gay's out. For the Spurs, it's a first of a back-to-back, and they always sit some players. You never know. So they might sit some players in that game. The Blazers, although there was no Kawhi Leonard, no Tony Parker, the Blazers only lost to them by 2. Most recently at home. I think they've played well against the Spurs for the most part over the past couple of years. So I think that's the one they're most likely to win. I think that will be the closest game just because of all the factors that could help the Blazers.
And they've played them close, too,
already.
already.
Played them close, but, the Thunder are on a roll right now. They're 9-3 in their last 12 games. And the Rockets, I don't see the Blazers scoring enough points to keep up with the Rockets. So to me, the Spurs is the other one. If they were to win 2 out of these next 4, I would say the second one comes with the Spurs.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the one I kind of went back and forth on, like I said, was Houston. But I don't see them winning any of those games right now.
So, one of the words that we've used to describe this schedule would be daunting. It's crazy. I think even after this, they get the Timberwolves.
They get the Timberwolves and Pelicans on the road.
So, you get 4 out of the top 5 teams in the Western Conference over about a week span, right? So Damian Lillard at practice today was asked about this schedule and if he looks ahead at it to see what's going on, to see what the competition holds. Here's what he had to say.
We lost 6 straight home games. We had a rough stretch. So based on how our team is mentally, and I think we're going in the right direction. I don't see, regardless of who we playing, home or on the road, I don't see us going out there and just laying an egg. I feel like we're going to attack it, and I feel like we're going to have a good stretch. That's just the way I feel about it.
So Damian Lillard is paying attention to the schedule.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if this is your job and this is what you do all the time, they can say they don't pay attention. They know what's coming up. Yeah. All these players do. One thing I will say about this team that I will never knock is I do believe they'll win these games. I don't think they know these teams are good, but I think the Blazers and these players believe they're just as good. And so whether that's just daydreaming or whatever, I still think they believe it, and that's I think why they've continue to be competitive, including skill-wise, against these teams. And that's something I'll never knock them for. In that they typically the effort is usually always there, and the belief is always there. It's just a matter of talent, and this is the stretch Neil Olshey's probably going to be looking at when they come to trade deadline and see how they do against these teams. If they're not winning them, then you gotta, I would say, almost throw up a white flag for the season.
The belief makes sense, too. I think that's genuine. And, why not? If you're playing these close games, you feel like, okay, if we catch a break here, if we don't do that here, maybe we're on the other end of this thing.
Not only that, but you look at the last 2 seasons, and you look at how Damian Lillard is looking at this. The last 2 seasons, they got off to much worse starts than they've started this season. They were under 500 last year. They were 11 games under 500 when they started to make that run to the playoffs. And so in the second half of each of the last 2 seasons, they've had really, really good, consistent stretches for a month or longer where they were playing, at least by record and stats, as one of the best teams in the NBA. So I think in Damian Lillard's mind, he sees that they can play at that level, and just the question as to why they don't consistently is a mystery that no one's been able to solve.
It's interesting that you say that because Damian Lillard has kind of had this big picture mentality this year, just thinking about even that injury that he suffered where he was out for 5 games, and his reasoning behind it was, I should sit out at one more game, make sure that I'm right, rather than just push through. We have a much longer road ahead of us. We were in worse shape at this point last year, so you know what, I'm not going to press. I trust my teammates. Let's go out there and win these games and do what they can. So it's, to your point, Lillard that's kind of been the mantra.
I have a question for both of you. Would you be surprised if the Blazers went out and won a couple of these games against the Spurs, Thunder, and Rockets?
No.
Yeah, neither would I. That's the thing that's weird about this team.
Yeah.
No.
I think that they can beat good teams. We've seen them be competitive. They just haven't been able to close out a bunch of these games. And so I'm not picking them to win because they haven't shown that they can do it recently, but I also wouldn't be surprised if it happened.
And I wouldn't be the other way. I wouldn't be, like I said earlier, I wouldn't be surprised if they lost to the Hawks either. Right. That's just the way this team is. They are good enough when they play well and everyone's hot. They are good enough to beat really good teams, but they are also bad enough to lose to really bad teams.
Yeah.
And that's where the frustration just is with this team. They're just it's inconsistency, and it might be a lack of talent. The talent on this roster probably is around a 500 talent roster, and that's what they've been.
I can say on the upcoming schedule, one person who says he doesn't look ahead is C.J. McCollum.
Oh, he's lying.
And he said, you know what, I don't look past the next couple of games that we have, but I would guess that a bunch of them are on the road. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up some new shows on Netflix. I'm going to go ahead and drink as much wine as I can while I'm at home.
Well, good plan. I like that. Wine and Netflix, you can't go wrong there.
Can't argue with that either. And on that note, that leaves us with our 3-on-3 Blazers. Make sure to check us out, Facebook Live, check out the podcast, and of course on KGW.com. Welcome to 2018. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thanks.